A New Hope, Nier Chapter 76. You can read all of Azazyl's fan-fiction stories by subscribing to patreon.com/Azazyel. Already dressed up in my custom YoRHa style outfit, I met the rest of my team on the landing pad on the side of the school. Of course, Miss Goodwitch was going to be our chaperone, as she typically was the one who was stuck showing the freshman class how to do sweep and clears in terms of Grimm extermination missions. Whereas surprisingly Professor Port was the one who went with senior teams about to graduate and help blood them in bandit cleanup missions or just any missions they got that dealt with having the 20-plus-year-olds kill their first people in a semi-controlled environment. All of you listen up. Goodwitch ordered making the half a dozen teams she was in charge of today shut the hell up, as we didn't want to be chucked off the mountain by Goodwitch's telekinesis semblance. Which, with impromptu landing skills being a core part of a huntsman's skill set, being chucked off a mountain in the name of making sure your landing skills were up to snuff was encouraged by the teachers. And Goodwitch seemed to find that particular duty to be her favorite pastime, with the ease with which she could do it. We will be landing on the entry section of Vale's port. All you have to do is wait for the dredging system to pull the Grimm to the beach and then hold and clear out the section that will be assigned to you. She yelled at the 30-plus students in front of her. So, there will likely be multiple waves of Grimm pulled to us. I thought as I looked around and saw my team was loaded for bear with plenty of extra ammo, with Ruby listing to the side due to the heavy bag she had on her side that held another half-dozen mags for her oversized sniper/scythe combo weapon. Thankfully, with my elemental magic I never needed to worry about ammo, and 2B's virtuous contract laughed at the pseudo-muscle and bone of the Grimm I cut into pieces. I will be sending the information for your team's designated sector once we are in the air. Now everyone stay within your teams and get on to the bullheads that will be taking us to the port. Goodwitch ordered as the bullheads' large back panels opened for us to board. While my team was getting strapped in, I was kind of surprised to see A2 riding the bullhead with Goodwitch and wondered what she was up to, as well as where 9S was, as I didn't see her this morning. So, Jake, I see you and Weiss are still going steady. Yang teased us briefly to get our attention, and when Weiss went to retort, Yang set off the Weiss meltdown when she spoke again. So, have you been going down on her something? She is certainly not nearly as wound up as she used to be. Weiss spluttered obviously at Yang's crass questions and made her opinion of such questions very plain. How dare you, Yang Xiaolong? Maybe your crassness is why you haven't even been able to hold a man outside of the ones you proposition in a bar. Oof, even Yang's face twitched at being called a slut. Even if Remnant's gender ratios were skewed due to men being stupid and dying in droves during the Great Wars and the recent Faunus Revolution, that didn't mean that a hottie like Yang couldn't snag a decent guy at all. I take that back, she has way too many attachment issues and would probably be a pain to date. PSH, at least I am not a virgin, Yang said, going for the nuclear option of not having a boyfriend. I wake up every morning with my boyfriend's arms around me and the knowledge that he cares for me. Did that smelly bouncer you blow to get into a club illegally give you a kiss for your good work? Weiss said primly as she folded over her legs, held my arm against her chest and taunted Yang. Okay, guys, stop fighting. Ruby cried, and I noticed that everyone on the bullhead was watching the little spat spellbound, with even Blake not so subtly watching over the rim of her book. Then I was saved by the bell, as it were. All of our scrolls loudly pinged, letting us know we had gotten our assigned chunk of beach surrounding the port that we needed to clean. We are in A2. I muttered with a wry smile, as I very clearly understood it was likely that A2 would be joining us. Then Blake, the leader of our sister team consisting of herself, Yang, Ren, and Nora, said she had A1. Jake, we need to be careful, as A1 and A2 typically have the strongest initial Grimm waves besides the last couple in the rotation, Blake explained, and I nodded in understanding that our teams would keep an eye out for one another. Despite Blake having a bit of a cowardly issue when it came to dealing with significant issues, she wasn't a bad person outside of that issue, especially if you didn't mention anything to do with Shnee's and Fauna's rights. Honestly, without Weiss on her team, she had blossomed in terms of coming to terms with self, as was shown by Blake already coming out of the metaphorical closet and having gotten rid of her bow after Nora burst into her side of the shower when Yang wouldn't share hers, and practically the whole dorm room could hear Nora screaming, "Kitty!" Not that Weiss and Blake didn't get into spats, but after I sat down with Blake and told her very clearly how the Shnee Dust Mining Company was completely controlled by her father, who married into the family, she had no way to continue laying blame for the literal slavery of Faunus kind after I asked her a very simple question. Why not remove all the Faunus from Atlas and Mantle? She blustered excuses but couldn't refute the very simple fact that with the militant arm of the White Fan, they could escort all the Faunus from Atlas and Mantle to the Faunus nation of Menagerie, or even Vale and Mistral, as they were far less racist than Atlas. So, although they certainly didn't get along, they could tolerate one another, and being able to shoot one another in combat class helped bleed off tensions as well. While I ruminated on the possibility of convincing my androids that Blake's perfect hips and backside indicated great fertility, I heard the back panel of the bullhead begin to slide open, telling us to get ready for combat, as I could hear the alarms of the net system telling any civilians to flee the fucking area as Grimm will be coming ashore. Once we were all arrayed out on the beach, and we jumped out of the hovering bullhead as it floated over our sector, I saw Blake's team was already mentally getting ready as the waters in the distance rippled with the thrashing of captured Grimm. "Ruby, you want to be Overwatch sniping the Grimm, or do you want to be in the melee?" I asked as I saw the very wide open slop downward beach in front of us. Sniping for most of my ammo would probably be for the best, so I don't get in the way, as fighting in the sand can be messy. Ruby decided, so with a nod I stomped into the soft sand, and Ruby had a rock pillar push her up into the air an additional 5 meters so she could easily just shoot over our heads with the way the beach slopped downwards pretty heavily. I then looked at the rest of the team. Alright, now while I and Jean will be acting as the vanguard and wall for the Grimm, Weiss, you, and YoRHa stand off to the sides and pick them off in their unarmored sides, I ordered, as the majority of Vale's aquatic Grimm were the massive saltwater gators called snatchers, about the size of trucks, with strong thick bone-studded skin on their face and tops of their bodies, but their sides and bellies were completely unarmored, and all too easily pierced honestly. Now as for why I had Ruby sniping them when their heads and backs were so armored, well, the thing was that the snatchers hunted with their very large and sensitive eyes that led directly to their brains, and with the Grimm being bigger than a truck. The eyes Ruby needed to hit with her sniper rifle were bigger than a soccer ball, so it wasn't anything too difficult with her skills. However, my thoughts were met with the angry hissing of the snatchers finally breaking through the water as the mechanical net system loudly began to groan at having to deadweight move literal tons of struggling monsters, and seemingly by instinct the Grimm noticed us on the shore, and in unison stopped fighting the net's movement so they could rush down towards us. A solid line of truck-sized monsters, probably more than a couple hundred strong in numbers, rushed towards Blake's and my team, and even I saw a two's pod lay a hail of suppressive fire alongside Ruby and everyone else's guns being shot into the fray. It still didn't beat the sheer number of Grimm intent on killing us. That was the thing about Grimm here in RWBY. They weren't too much of a threat, honestly. Until one very crucial detail was filled in. Many species of Grimm love to group up into hordes, just like these snatchers like to emulate a filled African river overran with the bastards, so once something was dragged into the river there was nothing that could survive 5 truck-sized gators dragging you into the water while ripping your limbs off with a death roll. Even as I unloaded the full output of my mana, creating a lightning storm surrounding me that would even arc between the monsters, I could only hold them all in place as I killed them, whereas Yang and Nora, the other heavy hitters, were being slowly pushed back up the beach as they couldn't kill a snatcher in a single blow as I could. Needless to say, the less martially inclined Jean had to be backed up by YoRHa, as she was completely unable to kill the Grimm with only her sword, but her defensive style did make it possible for her partner to dance around and kill them even easier than I could by attacking their weak points.